Hello and welcome to my review of the SilencerCo Chimera 300 suppressor. So far I've put in around 3,000 or so rounds to the suppressor and have had it for about a year, ever since November of 2019, I believe. I was very lucky with this suppressor, and my Form 4 came in at about, I believe, 74 days or so. This was during a period when Form 4s were coming back for suppressors specifically, I believe, very quickly. So I was very lucky and able to get this suppressor probably faster than most people ever will. However, I did pay in around $750 plus the $200 tax stamp for the suppressor, while this suppressor has an MSRP of about $1,000. Personally, I don't know exactly how much they go for, if you can find them in stock. However, mine was in a really interesting situation, as the original owner had to basically forfeit the suppressor as he moved to Hawaii, I believe. So it never actually transferred to him, so I was able to get this suppressor technically used, however it was never shot. With that being said, I have shot mostly 5.56 out of a BCM PSA combo pistol that I built. While the suppressor is mostly designed for the 30 caliber cartridges, it obviously can shoot from 5.56 up to 300 Winchester Magnum. In this review, I'm going to basically be covering some pros, cons, and features, and my overall just opinion on the suppressor in general. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and show you what comes with your suppressor and what my opinion on some of the parts that it uses. Your suppressor obviously comes with your suppressor, and it also comes with a mounting device for your suppressor. Specifically, mine came with the 3-prong flash hider. I believe this one is a 30 caliber. However, I'm almost certain that these come with a just mixture of different ones depending on which one you get. I believe you can specifically pick which one you want from different shops. However, I believe the 30 caliber ones are almost always going to come with the suppressor, and so it's really just a luck of the draw of which one you'll get. However, I believe that the muzzle brake is probably your best bet to go with, and I'll explain that here in a little bit once I show you my rifle, as there are some advantages to using the muzzle brake that go beyond just it being a muzzle brake over a flash hider. Specifically, it covers how the mounting system works and some potential wear that may be caused by using the flash hider in particular. Your suppressor obviously comes with a manual, and I believe it is really important to read the manual. It does explain how to install your suppressor, specifically how to use Rockset and the like. I'll also talk a little bit about how to use Rockset as well. Probably the most important thing besides the suppressor and the mounting system that comes with your suppressor is the bag of tools that come with it. I'll talk about these in a little bit. However, I believe that these are extremely important, and if you plan on shooting this at any range, it's almost paramount that you bring this with you, especially if you decide to take the suppressor off for any reason. The SilencerCo Chimera 300 suppressor is a mixture of SilencerCo's Omega and Saker series. I believe it's taking the characteristics of the Saker from durability and I believe the mounting system and mixing it with the noise suppression of the Omega. However, I could be wrong. I'm not entirely sure what it's taking from the Omega. However, it is as long as the Omega is, I believe. And with that being said, the suppressor has a very high weight and length compared to many other suppressors, specifically comparing the Omega and Saker to this. This suppressor weighs in at about 20.3 ounces and is about 6.9 inches long. So again, you're getting the weight characteristics of the Saker and the length characteristics of the Omega. With that being said, though, this suppressor does have no barrel length restrictions, meaning that this suppressor is going to be really well suited towards your shorter barreled rifles, which, based on the weight and length, is definitely the way to go. Before I talk about anything else related to the suppressor, I'd like to go ahead and show you how to install it. Due to me recording this on my phone one-handed, I can't really show you how to exactly install it. However, I can explain it, and it's pretty easy, so I would say that this is definitely going to serve well if you don't know how to install it. There are other videos probably out there to show you how to do this, but again, it's so simple, I don't really think you need to have a guide. There is some danger of potentially harming the suppressor, specifically not locking it correctly and either trying to install it in the locked position or installing it and not locking it down, which obviously would send the suppressor flying if you ever shot it like that. So finally getting to actually showing you how to do it. There are threads on your mounting device that your suppressor threads into. And once you have fully threaded your suppressor on, you will use this locking collar that has the word lock on it to move this nub over to this side. This is in the unlocked, and moving it over here is the locked position. I can't really show it to you as I said. However, this is very simple, and I don't really think you can mess this up unless you have absolutely no idea what you're doing. I might as well go ahead and talk about a con that I believe that this mounting system has, and why I believe using a other mounting system might be somewhat beneficial. Discussing the tools that come with your suppressor, you get a spanner wrench with your suppressor that I believe is probably the most valuable tool to have with. I would recommend keeping this with your suppressor at all times, especially if you plan on taking this suppressor off at the range and swapping it onto different rifles. This mounting system has the flaw that it is very easy to loosen up, in my opinion, and this spanner wrench allows you to tighten it. You simply put the toothed edge of the spanner wrench into this groove right here and simply tighten it. This suppressor comes off relatively easy, I would say, and threads on relatively easy. And I believe the downside of that is that it allows for this entire mounting system to come off relatively easily. I would recommend keeping the threads on the mount and on the inside of this lubed up and greased so that it allows for things to go smoothly. One of the downsides I've had sometimes is that when I try to actually lock this down, it doesn't always want to go all the way to the end. And I would recommend never firing it unless this nub is at the other end of this collar. The other tool that comes with this suppressor is a multi-tool that, for example, allows you to swap out the end cap. There are a few different end caps. Specifically, I believe a 5.56 end cap is one of the most prevalent ones, as it allows you to get a little bit better noise suppression through 5.56. As I previously mentioned, there are other mounting systems that can be utilized with the SilencerCo Chimera. Specifically, the Dead Air Chemo is a very popular alternative, but I've also seen people reference the Cherry Bomb by Q. Personally, I have no experience with them. However, I probably would recommend you use one of those, as I've heard that those are significantly more reliable and better overall, and also easier to find mounting devices for, which I'll talk a little bit about in a bit once I discuss some other aspects of the suppressor and eventually move on to what I think about the muzzle devices. Moving on to the characteristics of the suppressor, I'll go ahead and say that I don't really know much about the decibel levels that you'll find on each caliber or barrel length. Personally, I've never been really into learning about that. There are plenty of videos that show people testing these suppressors and measuring the decibel ranges on different calibers and barrel lengths. Personally, you can find that all online, so I'm not going to cover it here. However, I will say that it is definitely quiet enough that if you're shooting a 5.56, 11.5 inch barrel or 16 inch barrel, you could probably shoot a few rounds and not experience any discomfort of the ears. Particularly, I haven't noticed any real ringing of the ears within about 5 or more shots. On a 16 inch Galil Ace, however, in 7.62x39, I did notice that within about 3 to 5 shots, it was kind of ringing my ears, mostly due to the fact that an AK is a bit overgassed in general, and having to fine-tune the gun can be kind of hard to do. So personally, I would say this: you could definitely get away with shooting a few shots here and there if you absolutely needed to without hearing protection. However, I definitely wouldn't recommend doing so. Moving on to the gas blowback of the suppressor. Personally, I've experienced that on a 16-inch AR, you can definitely get away with using this suppressor without modifying the gun. However, on my 16-inch mid-length BCM, I did notice that one time it did not lock open the last round bolt open. However, on my 11.5-inch AR, I had to use a H2 buffer in order to properly cycle the gun, as it would constantly malfunction or simply not lock open on the last round. On my 16-inch Galil Ace, I had to go to about, I believe, 20 or more clicks on the K&S adjustable gas piston. The gas is somewhat annoying as obviously it will get into your eyes through an AR-15 charging handle, so I'd probably recommend using a Radiant Arms gas buster charging handle to avoid that, or simply tuning the gas. As most of my shooting was done with my 11.5-inch BCM, I can't necessarily talk about the change in accuracy or shift in accuracy when shooting this suppressor on guns that were not zeroed with it. Personally, from my experience using my 16-inch BCM, I noticed that it was relatively close to where I was originally zeroed for. You might notice a 0.5 MOA difference. I highly doubt you'll actually notice any real difference, and personally I wouldn't worry about it at all. Moving on to an aspect about the mounting system that I found was somewhat interesting to learn about was that the 3-prong flash hider can cause some premature wear on your suppressor, especially after prolonged use. I have a personal friend experienced that same exact wear patterns, and I've also seen many people online recommend using the muzzle brake over the 3-prong flash hider due to this issue. One aspect of the 3-prong flash hider is that these chambers act as a sacrificial baffle for wear as well. The muzzle devices for this suppressor are somewhat expensive and hard to find. I usually can find the brakes for about 80 or so bucks, and sometimes they're really hard to find in stock, and you might end up waiting a while for them to go into stock at any given time. Moving on to actually how to install your muzzle device is relatively simple. The muzzle brakes come with a set of shims and some rock set. The shims are important as they allow you to properly index your muzzle device and get it to the proper position for actual usage. The rock set is used to properly make sure that your muzzle device does not move or come off during shooting or unthreading. The way you actually properly use rock set is of two ways. One, you can use a blowtorch after properly putting your entire device on and blowtorching it until you start seeing it bubble over. As you can see, there's some remnants that I've just never cleaned up. Another way you can do it is waiting about 24 to 48 hours for it to cure, and when you go to shoot, you'll notice that it will actually bubble over and properly set itself. Moving on to the flash suppression and overall wear that I've experienced with the suppressor, I'll go ahead and say that I have not gotten a proper testing environment for the actual flash suppression. I've only been really able to shoot in a relatively decently dim-lighted range and mostly outside during daytime. In my video where I'm shooting the suppressor, you can see those conditions in that range, and you can notice that there isn't really any amount of flash coming out the end of the suppressor. However, I will be testing this suppressor at nighttime when I get my PVS-14, and I'll be able to properly evaluate how well this suppressor works at night. Moving on to the wear, this suppressor has a Cerakote finish and has really almost no wear to it. You can see some scratches and minor dings where the spanner wrench has been used to tighten the mount. Other than that, there's very little in terms of any real damage to the suppressor. One aspect I think is somewhat interesting, though, is when you shoot the suppressor, it tends to turn to a slightly reddish pink hue of black. One way to fix that is to simply just get some CLP or gun oil and rub it down. It'll return right to its normal color, and that's even recommended in the manual. Other than that, I haven't noticed any peeling or any real finish wear from just getting the suppressor really hot, as some suppressors can do. With all this being said, I really can't say a whole lot more. This suppressor is definitely a really good suppressor and is 100% worth your money in my opinion. Although you might want to switch out the mounting system, there isn't a whole lot more you can really do to this suppressor to make it any better. In my opinion, the suppressor is definitely good enough for full auto fire, as it is also rated for full auto fire. If you like this video, please comment, like, subscribe. I try to reply to all comments and respond to everything I see. So far, I plan on doing some other reviews potentially in the future, specifically on the night vision that I'm getting in my setup for my night vision and how that all works. I plan on also doing some update videos on some other guns I've already reviewed, specifically the PSA AK-74 and some other things. So stay tuned and see you in the next video.